think most of us have had a chance to recover, calm down, gather our thoughts. I know I personally want to thank Kevin Llewellyn to my right for talking me down.
Off the ledge.
Because, and I'm not alone, and that, at least that's the caveat I have. I'm not alone. That after the game against UT Martin, which we lost 21-7, making us 0-3, dropping us out of the top 25 for the first time in 52 weeks. 6th longest streak in the country.
Deservedly so.
Yeah.
No way in the world you're in the top 25 at 0-3.
And 52 weeks that's not like 52 weeks in a calendar year.
No.
That's 52 football weeks. That dates all the way back to 2013.
Well, after having, rational thought come back, because I thought, this is just the worst I've ever seen us play, or any game of football played since the dawn of time. I mean, this was awful. But Kevin did bring up some good points, and we're going to allow him to share those with us. But basically, and I'll let him kind of get into the reasoning that it's not time for the apocalypse. But there are issues, and I think we'll all agree with that there's some issues with the Mocs football team. But basically, all is not lost. And Kevin, tell us why.
Well, I mean, first off, I think there was a complete underrating of UT Martin.
Agreed.
And I being the one who doesn't know as much history of the FCS and the SoCon and UTC, I don't really have that knowledge of which teams have historically been good and which teams have historically not been. So maybe I can come into it with a little more of a, this is what I've seen this year from this team.
Correct.
And so I do know that this is a UT Martin team that is now 3-0. And records are what they are. I mean, if you haven't played anybody, it doesn't really matter if you're 3-0 or 0-3.
2-1.
2-1. You're right. I say 3-0. Well, I say 3-0 because I guess that the Ole Miss game is the one I want to talk about.
Right.
I mean, they beat Clarion. I don't even know who that is. Let's just be honest.
They make good speakers.
Yeah, they do. But they the second game against Ole Miss. We talked last week about how bad Ole Miss is in the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
And they are. I'm not sure that Ole Miss will win an SEC game this year. But let's just, slow down a minute and be realistic and say that the worst team in the SEC should beat an average FCS team handily.
Correct. Every single time.
Every time. It doesn't matter where you're at, who is hurt. That's just depth. That's the way. And I'm not just talking about the SEC because, and those of you that know me real well know that I hate the idea of like this SEC university thing. My wife will laugh if she happens to hear that because I hate it. So it's not really me patting the SEC on the back, but I mean any Power 5 school. Mm-hmm. But let's just go to Ole Miss. So as I pull up Ole Miss's record this year, so they won their first game against some nobody team, and then they beat UT Martin 45-23, and then they traveled all the way to the West Coast this past week to Cal and lost 27-16. And it wasn't a 27-16 like they were never close, never in the game. They actually led for a good part of the game. It was 20-16 until within the last 2 minutes, and they threw a pick six, just trying to make something happen, get the ball down the field to try to win the game. So I mean, an 11-point game that could have easily been a 4-point loss could have easily been a win. Cal, the same Cal team that they just lost to by 11, beat North Carolina.
Yeah, they went on
the road
Chapel
and
Hill,
beat North Carolina in Chapel Hill earlier this year.
Yeah.
Now, none of those three teams are going to be, they're not going to be playing for a national championship. They're not going to be playing in a major bowl game, but they're also not bottom of the barrel either.
Correct.
I would say Cal is the middle of the pack, Pac-12 school. I would say North Carolina is a middle of the pack ACC school. Mm-hmm. And so as bad as we thought Ole Miss was, the game against Cal actually makes me think they're not as bad as maybe we thought they were. And so I look at the UT Martin game where it was actually, we said last week they were winning at halftime. UT Martin was losing 17-16 at halftime.
Okay.
To
Ole
Ole
Miss.
Miss.
Okay, yeah.
But they did have I think it was 16-7 for like a 16-7 UT Martin lead for much of the first half. And then Ole Miss just, again, we talked about it several weeks ago when we played LSU, that the depth in the second half, it kind of came out.
Right.
So, from a perspective of, well, we lost to UT Martin. UT Martin's awful. I think we're going to look at that in about 5 or 6 weeks, and I don't know that UT Martin will lose another game outside of possibly Jacksonville State. And I'm really eager to see that game later this year because I really think that defense, looked every bit as good as Jacksonville State's. Now, that's also the same defense that gave up almost 500 yards passing to the Ole Miss quarterback. So, we don't really know, but for all of those saying, woe is us, we're 0-3, I just think we need to just be cautious. Now, I say all that. After this past week, there is no more of that, though. I mean, we have to win this Saturday.
Yes.
This is a must-win this Saturday.
Absolutely. If you can ever call a game a must
Right.
it's this week against VMI.
Right. And then, we talk about how, historically bad the offense was, particularly in the first, really the whole game. I mean, we say the first half, but, I mean, there were a couple of large plays that led to the 150 yards total offense we had. And other than that, I mean, a 59-yard touchdown pass.
Yeah, take away that 59-yard touchdown pass.
And take away the prevent defense in the last couple of minutes, the last couple of drives that we had, and we really probably don't top 50 yards. And, and how awful it was, it's just – but I think we also underestimate – I think because Nick Tiano came from Mississippi State.
Yeah.
And was a highly touted prospect, when he went to Mississippi State, and being a local kid, I think we put too much stock into how good he would be right away. And I think we underestimate the value that Alejandro Benefield has and how much we will have when we get him back.
Well, it doesn't matter if you have Joe Montana back there. If you're not blocking, if you have no run game to speak of, it's not really going to matter.
That's where I'm eager to see how much Benefield helps us. Not really in the passing game. I think Tiano, for the amount of time that he's had in the pocket to throw the ball, has done fairly well.
I agree.
I think that I'm eager, and he's run the ball fairly well too. But he's more of a power runner from a quarterback's from the quarterback position. Benefield, from everything I've heard, again, this is being my first year, kind of following UTC, gives us a little more speed back there.
Benefield can make you miss.
Right, and I'm eager to see how having him and Bagley and Bridges back there will help alleviate some of the issues, because speed can overcome a lack of blocking better than power can. You can't power rush the football when there are no holes to run through.
Right.
But you can speed and making you miss, making the first man miss. Now we get in the open field and we make something out of that.
Well, it's also noticeable after only being at 2 of the 3 games now. Now Kevin's been at all 3. So Kevin went to LSU 2 weeks ago and was at UT Martin there on Saturday. But it's noticeable that our opposition, especially UT Martin, does not give us any like they're not afraid of our run game or passing game, for that matter, passing game. So what they're doing is they're stocking the box with an extra safety or an extra defensive back, saying we're going to stop the run. You're going to beat us by passing it. And a lot of that of our inept run game that we have is essentially, we can blame it on the offensive line, yes, and they are to blame. It's also just the opposition saying, we're going to stop the run, you're going to have to beat us by the pass. And as far as defensive formation and how they're scheming against us.
Yeah, and I mean, it's very circular, because we can't throw the ball deep.
Correct, yeah.
So they don't have to play beyond 10 yards.
Correct. So
which hurts the running game.
They're stacking the box. Yeah.
But we can't run the ball. So
it's a perfect storm.
Right. So they don't have to play. I mean, everything is working against us at this point.
Correct.
And I'm eager to see how having Benefield will help us there. And then to me, watching this game defensively, now I'll say a positive. One of the things we can take out of this game is that we held the I need to see that stat. What?
We held Ladarius Galloway.
Galloway only had
Ole Miss running back.
70-something yards. I was going to look at 79 yards rushing. This is the same Galloway that had 180-something against Ole Miss.
And 3 touchdowns, I believe.
So, I mean, from that perspective, the linebackers and the defensive line played very well at the line of scrimmage. They only ran the ball for 110 yards total. And this was a team that just ran all over Ole Miss and Clarion. But the linebackers in the secondary played awful. And it's just we haven't been able to do everything well at one time.
Correct.
But I will say this. You said something about me being at every game. And I know you guys have watched you guys watched the LSU game too. The team that played LSU and the team that played Jacksonville State would have won this past Saturday. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want to just completely go and throw myself off of the top of a 5-story building over one really bad game until I see that it's going to become 2 bad games and 3 bad games. Because I felt like the first 2 games, while they were losses, were very well played and would compete.
Yes, there was enough of a sample size there. There was enough good that we saw that we felt like would carry over more so to UT Martin.
Right. I don't want to throw out the first 2 games just because we looked so bad. And then, again, we talk about, I felt like even the secondary played poorly, but I really felt like the secondary and the linebackers played poorly in underneath coverage. Mm-hmm. Not so much
which was a big
downfield
surprise.
coverage. Right. Me too. Yeah.
Surprise.
I mean, we got beat across the middle. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many times. Kareem Moore had a few times where, got beat across the middle, had a couple of holding penalties or passing, and CJ Fritz, we had so much trouble playing them in the crossing routes. And again, we talked about how we miss Benefield. That the same could be said, probably even more, about how much we miss Dale Warren.
Absolutely, yes. And he's got 3 more games, which means he won't be back, I believe, till Mercer.
But man,
yes, this is preseason All-American linebacker Dale Warren.
Right. But I am telling you, though, if it had to happen to lose your starting quarterback, your senior starting quarterback, and your preseason All-American senior linebacker, we couldn't have had a better schedule. Because all of the teams that supposedly are at the top preseason-wise in the SoCon are at the end of the schedule, and both of those guys will be there for
And honestly, if we had taken the blinders off, especially the blinders that Eric and I wear, we could have probably seen this coming. At least it shouldn't have been such a big surprise, because UT Martin from the beginning was favored to challenge Jacksonville State for the OVC title, which
Ohio
they've
Valley,
had undisputed forever. There's almost been no – matter of fact, I think they haven't lost an FCS game outside of the playoffs in several seasons.
4 years.
4 years. And this year, UT Martin is in a position to actually challenge that. But going forward, and again, even with these things that we've talked about that we should have seen coming, it's a backup quarterback. It's a piecemeal line. We're missing an All-American linebacker. Secondary had a bad game. I think it has to be said, though, there is a definite problem with the offensive line this year. Granted, we did lose Corey Levin, Hunter Townsend, Jacob Rivas. These are solid 3-4 year starters. Mm-hmm. And while we do have Josh Cardiello at center, very good center, and we have an excellent right tackle.
You're referencing Malcolm White. Yeah, correct. Yeah, we're getting beat in the guard positions. Let's be honest. Left and right guard positions.
They're just coming right through
the middle. And that's what I was alluding to earlier about Kevin being at the games. In person, you can see the opposition stack the box. And the safeties just creep forward just a little bit. And because, as Kevin said, there's no threat to go deep. A lot of our plays are within that 10 yards or under. and our offense has become, as far as maybe how other coaches would look at us, maybe very unintimidating or very predictable in nature.
No, there's no one that
As I asked Coach Arth in the post game press conference there at Finley Stadium after UT Martin, I asked him in regards to Joseph Parker. Joseph Parker, the first 2 weeks of the season, was nominated for SoCon Offensive Player of the Week, and he had no catches versus UT Martin.
I believe he only had one target.
One target, no catches.
There's just no time.
Right. So, and
I mean, Tiano, how many balls did he throw to the running backs? Because I mean,
he's at
literally
the check down.
Just had to. He didn't even have time to go through his reads. He just knew where the check down was and had to throw it there. And I mean, sitting in the stands, you hear a whole bunch of people. Everyone's going to scream at the quarterback. And Nick Tiano, if you happen to listen to this, listen, true football people will know that this is not all on some of it is. I mean, it's on everyone.
Sure.
And you, as the leader of the team, the quarterback tends to take the brunt of it. But I mean, it's got to be a team effort. I just
You can only do so much by yourself, though.
right.
Without that help.
What I'm thinking is the way I've felt as the season has progressed is anyone that watches the game knows how difficult it is to score in the red zone. And if you watch the game and you watch it enough, you know why it's difficult to score in the red zone. Mm-hmm. It's because everything is compressed. Yep. Mm-hmm. Everything is squeezed in. It's harder to run the ball. Mm-hmm. It's harder to throw the ball because you don't. There are times where I'm watching a game, if it's the team that I'm following or the team that I'm a fan of, that I would prefer to have the ball at about the 25 or the 30 because I know that gives us, especially if you have speed receivers. I'm thinking about like teams like the Falcons where all those weapons at receiver. And I know that's NFL, but it's just you want a little more space. You want some room to move. Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like we're in the red zone on every play.
Well said.
I feel like the defenses are they're not playing past 10 yards.
They don't respect us.
Right.
Essentially,
We've got. I feel like we're going to have somebody that can beat a defensive back deep on a go route. Not a double move because we don't have time for a double move. I
shouldn't laugh. I'm sorry.
No, but it's true though. We don't have time for a double move. We don't have time to run an out and up. We need somebody that can beat a defensive back on a go route.
And going to spring practice there at Scrappy Moore Field, I thought that was going to be DeJuan McQuarters. Mm-hmm. And then Joseph Parker came in. Right?
Yes.
So the transfer from Wyoming. But I'm looking.
Y'all know this team better than I do as far as in the past. Is there a defensive back with enough speed to do that? Is there a defensive back on our team?
Are you referencing wide receiver?
Is there a defensive back?
Defensive back. Okay.
That could slide to wide receiver that has enough speed to be a deep threat? And that's just something I just now thought of. Like, is there something out of the box?
CJ Bohr was that guy last year.
Well,
and Jeff can allude to that. He was our big play threat.
But I mean,
we don't have that speed this year.
Or could somebody slide to the offense for 10 plays, 15 plays? Want to be able to play on both sides of the ball and just be able to give us somebody with speed on the outside.
Something to keep the safeties honest. Just creep
I'm
back
thinking
instead
of
of creeping up.
Like,
That's
because
well
our
said.
receivers, we know what we have at this point, and we do have a couple of guys with speed.
If I had to pick one, it would be Rashawn Freeman from Ooltewah. Because he did play both ways.
Well, and that's a good one because he doesn't play full-time on defense. I'm not suggesting that Coach Arthur is going to go crazy with this stuff at this point yet. But
no, it's not time for desperation.
No.
This week. Let's reconvene in a week and talk again. But again, what's the solution for the offensive line was?
And before we jump into that, I do want to say that according to the SoCon Sports statistics for this week after week 3, UTC is ranked 8th of 9th in scoring offense, averaging 10 points per game. Western Carolina is number 1, averaging 41 points per game. Now, granted, look at their schedule. Western Carolina played Davidson. Yeah. They went on the road to Hawaii. They missed several field goals there, had a bunch of special teams miscues. And then last week, I believe they played Gardner-Webb. So that's the antithesis of what UTC has had to play in Jacksonville State, in LSU, and now UT Martin. But regardless, Chattanooga is 8th. Now, Chattanooga's opponent this Saturday is VMI. They rank last. They rank 9th at 6.7 points per game scored.
They only scored in one game.
Right. Yeah. So VMI has gotten shut out 2 of their 3 weeks.
So this is very fortuitous scheduling. If we've played the hardest 3 games of our season, which we all agree we have,
Yes.
this game couldn't come at a better time. Can you imagine if we played Wofford or Citadel this
Correct.
week? I mean, we need that game, and we're not going to take anything for granted. VMI is a college football team. They have, if you look at the stats from last week, they had a breakout performance. Granted, it was against who did they play this week? Was it VMI? Catawba?
That was the week
No, they
before.
played Air Force.
No, Air Force.
2 weeks
Air
ago.
Force was week 1.
My bad. This was backwards.
Robert Morris.
Robert
I'm sorry. It was Robert Morris. Robert.
This had the schedule backwards.
They traveled to Pennsylvania and played Robert Morris. Forgive me. Yeah.
Good for them. But they had a great performance from their running back, kind of a breakout performance. I believe he dropped 175 plus. So
Yeah. So Chattanooga is ranked 9th in rushing offense in the Southern Conference.
well, that's because there's not 10 teams.
And that's because there are not 10 teams. And VMI is ranked 6th at just over 100. So yes, in reference to what to who you are to who you are alluding to. But I mean, I'm just concerned that our offense has just become just predictable. Now I know what they're trying to do. What they're trying to do is play short yards, and then while the safeties creep up, while the linebackers creep up, then you go deep. Then you hit them long. Like you remember that Joseph Parker play versus LSU?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
That's how our offense is predicated. It's slow and steady. It's underneath, and then boom, there's a deep option available. But I mean, my dad said from the stands on Saturday, we're just running the same 3 or 4 plays is what it looked like.
Okay, so I was in the press box at halftime.
Okay.
And Gene Henley from the Chattanooga Times Free Press
yeah.
and I were talking about the first half and just what was going on. And he made the comment that he felt that Arth wasn't taking the training wheels off of Nick Tiano in terms of play calling. And I do wonder, because I don't know the ins and outs of the game plan and the playbook and all of that stuff, how much he wasn't willing to do with Tiano if he didn't feel like Tiano could handle as much, or not just Tiano, but Tiano with that offense. I don't want to put that all on the quarterback, but how limited he was in his play calling, with Tiano at quarterback and with that offensive line.
And also, if
Right. I'd still put it more on the offensive. It doesn't matter, what kind of player.
but let's
and you
but
have zero time.
But if we recall, remember all of these players that are on our team, except for these specific or the selected transfers, were recruited to play in this spread style offense.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden they're having to teach them a new scheme, teach them a new playing style. You're having to mold the players to fit what Arth wants to do. And that takes time. Your left tackle and your offensive line, they're having to do different things and different assignments to fit a certain scheme that they were not trained for or recruited for originally under Huseman's watch, right?
Exactly. And I think in time, now this is, forecasting way into the future. Really what matters is next week, but I think Coach Arth is a good coach. He proved that at John Carroll, albeit that was Division III. He played Division III teams, and he was very, very successful. I believe he's got the pedigree for it. But this isn't his, like you were alluding to, this isn't his recruiting class.
Correct.
This isn't the players he recruited to the system. These are from Huseman's era.
In Huseman's era, we saw a lot of that. We saw 3 or 4 wide receivers. We didn't see a true fullback. We saw Alejandro not under center. And now what Arth wants to bring, he wants to bring
Totally different.
He wants to bring 2 tight ends. He wants to have a true fullback and essentially maybe two wide receivers on the outside, or you have one receiver, and then you have more of a slot guy. But essentially, it's a fullback. It's a true I formation, quarterback under center, and you have two tight ends.
And if you go back when Coach Huseman inherited this team back in 2009,
Correct,
from Rodney Allison, it was the same scenario.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I believe he finished 6-5 first year, 5-6 the second year.
correct, yeah,
I mean,
6-5 Huseman's first year.
Yeah, 6, and then he regressed to 5-6. But again, those were players from someone else's system.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll give Coach. I think Coach Arth is a good coach, and I know a lot.
Yes,
of
I believe all three of us can say long term we have faith.
Sure, yeah. But go ahead.
You asked what we can do though in the short term to help the offensive line.
Yes.
I would like to. Now listen, I don't have 1% the football mind that Coach Arth and his staff have. So I would never pretend to be able to throw X's and O's out there like those guys in Riscotti, and I wouldn't, and I would never want to play Monday morning quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that you've got to get some help putting Bridges and Bagley in the backfield and releasing one of them on a route and keeping the other end to block, using your tight end to block some. The problem is that right now we have nobody on the outside, with the exception of maybe Parker, and I think obviously that he wasn't able to get any separation this past week, that can get separation on their own. So if you leave people in the block, you've got to have some guys that can win one-on-one. Mm-hmm. And I can't name you one person that could.
Yes, we have a lot of possession receivers, and Will Young and James Stovall and Bingo. Our offense is not predicated to that win the route in the first 3 or 4 yards and get separation.
Or run 3 receiver routes and be able to, we're only going to, right now, from what I can see in the passing game, just simply passing alone, not considering blocking. We've got to get 4 and 5 receivers and flood a zone and get a guy open and get multiple levels, and that's how we're getting people open. But the problem with that is the only way to do that is to run, to get 4 and 5 guys out on a route, which only leaves you with 5 and 6 blocking. And I really think at this point we need 6 or 7 blocking.
Yeah, and how many times were we third and long or second and long? UTC finished
All game.
UTC finished 1 of 12 on third down conversions. Yep. Now, I don't know that math, but that's not good.
Yeah,
1 of 12. 1 of 12 on third down conversions.
We couldn't even run a screen because, and that's something that really bothers me, because you talk about, again, ways to hide an offensive line. Screen passes, shovel passes, misdirection, things like that. Mm-hmm. But you can't do that when on a screen pass. I even said it, and I said it to my 12-year-old daughter, who has absolutely no idea what I was talking about, that you've got to chip the guy on a screen pass. You can't just let him have a free run. Right. And literally, we tried to run a screen pass one time, and, they were in Tiano's face, and so obviously it looks like he didn't know what he's doing. It was the one where they threw the flag on intentional grounding and then picked it up and waved it off, because obviously there was a receiver in the area. But and everybody boos and everybody's yelling and screaming, and I'm thinking, he threw it. It was as close to being on his back as he could possibly be.
And Tiano was there was some point later in the game where he did have a few extra half of a second to throw, and he was feeling hearing ghost. Mm-hmm. And his body was he wasn't able to follow through with his throws because he had gotten beaten up so much prior, where he just instantly felt that pressure that wasn't there at that moment. Does that make sense?
That's also something I said, and again, I talked to my 12-year-old like she understands what I'm saying, but she probably doesn't.
Hey, Bridget.
Maybe more than because of the fact that I don't treat her like she's incapable of understanding things. But I told her that Tiano looked scared. Mm-hmm. And she asked me, she said, "How do you know that, Dad? You can't see his eyes, you can't see his face." I said, "But I can see his feet." Mm-hmm. And his feet look scared. And I said, "But listen, it's really easy for me to sit here at 5'7", 130 pounds in the stands and say that he should stand in the pocket and throw the football and step up. But I'd be scared too if like you just said, the whole first half he doesn't have more than 2 seconds. Well, then at that point when he does have time, you don't feel like you have time.
Yeah, he doesn't feel comfortable. He's not able to
never
go through,
felt. He never felt comfortable on Saturday, and I felt like he did. There were times against LSU, and really LSU. Jacksonville State, I don't know that he felt comfortable either. That defensive line got after him.
I didn't feel comfortable against Jacksonville State sitting on my couch.
No, I mean they were after him, but LSU didn't really get as much pressure on him. It's amazing the other three games.
Well, look at the opening drive against LSU.
I feel like our offense looked the
Beautiful.
best against LSU.
Yes, I agree.
So, I don't know if a lot of that was their scheme, but I'll
to
tell you
have
what it is.
Jeff, is there any update on either Bagley and or Bridges as far as injuries? Because I know they both suffered injuries throughout the UT Martin game,
Right.
And this might be something for people that are listening. This might be something that we tweet out later in the week regarding the injury situation with the running back.
I think Bagley will be fine. Bridges, a minor thing, should be able to play this week.
Good.
And again, and this look forward now to the good times ahead, because we like being positive here because it keeps us from crying. But we have VMI coming up, and again, nothing against VMI. Probably that and the Citadel, my two favorite campuses to visit, and my son is actually interested in attending those schools. Again,
Oh, really?
yes.
Wow.
Excellent schools, military schools, tremendous
Are you taking your son up there this weekend to VMI?
Yes. Yes.
By the way, it is a beautiful campus for anybody
outstanding.
that is on the cusp of deciding whether they should or should not make the trip to VMI this weekend.
Oh.
Yes, it's a long drive, but it is the reverence of VMI being on that campus is something to
And it's
behold.
a totally different
Something I'll
type of
always
atmosphere
remember.
when you're at
Yes.
military school, because they're required to be there. All
Correct.
Of them.
Yeah.
So, and then whenever VMI scores, which last time we were there was a lot.
Was a lot. The cannons.
But they come out, they run out, they do push-ups. But anyway, that being said, they're not a very good football team. And
Yes, they rank. We ranked 8th in scoring offense. VMI ranks last.
Right.
We rank 8th in total offense. VMI ranks last. So
this is the time to get everything back together. VMI has a hard time scoring. We have a good defense.
yes, VMI's been shut out 2 of the 3 games, as
Right.
Kevin alluded to earlier.
We've got to get some points on defense.
Yeah.
I mean, and listen, I can't sit here and fault our defense for any. I feel like the defense played
Yes, they've been put in bad situations. Yeah,
as
on the field too
well
long.
as
Yeah.
they possibly could. I know there were some breakdowns, and I know I highlighted a few negatives, but just you have, if you're on the field for 36 minutes, 36 plus minutes, and a lot of times in poor situations in terms of field position,
That UT Martin always had great field position.
and give up 21 points. And I felt like it was a fantastic, a great game by the defense. The only reason that we were even in it to begin with.
The defense has kept the games respectable. We haven't won any
Well
games,
said.
but we haven't been blown out either because of the defense. If you think about it, a lesser defense this past Saturday would have really been embarrassing. But instead, they have done good. I think they'll continue to excel this week, but I agree with you.
We haven't had a turnover yet in the
Exactly.
last 2 games.
Yeah.
We had 2 against Jacksonville State, but
yep.
then we haven't forced a turnover in the last 2 games. LSU, I'll buy that, but I mean, they threw the ball enough. UT Martin threw the ball enough that we've got to get a turnover. We need to give the offense a short field. We need to score on defense and give the offense, a jolt. Special teams, get a punt return of 30, 40 yards, get a kickoff return that gets to midfield, put the offense in a better situation than, all right, jog out to the 20, 25-yard line
And
and
when we
take
do
over.
get a big play, let's try to avoid the yellow flag, too. That was another big kill.
Oh
But
gosh,
that's
yeah. We just looked.
just wanted to vent there
Yeah,
real quick.
Let's talk about that real quick. So we had just our penalties kept piling up. We would shoot ourselves in the foot early against UT Martin. Was that a players are still adjusting to the scheme, or was that a not prepared?
I think a lot of it was survival. A lot of it was holding because,
But
when you got a freight train coming through, it's either take a 10-yard penalty or have your
It's a little misleading. We had 7 penalties for 53 yards, and that
I think
doesn't
it's the
feel
timing
right.
was
That's what I was going to say.
They
That
were
doesn't
almost
seem that
always
bad.
third down. Or after
Or first
special
down.
teams.
Or
Yeah.
first down. You're
Or,
looking at
yeah,
first and
we converted.
15 because we have a false start. I mean, it's not but a 5-yard penalty.
And
But
again, that's from the pass rush. Special teams, I believe we had some too that took back nice returns back to beyond, back into the red.
Can I give a early season MVP real quick?
If you can do it in 21 minutes.
21 minutes. Okay, my early season MVP is punter Colin Brewer.
I agree.
Colin, if you're listening, parents, if you're listening, Colin has what a guy, right? I mean, he's flipped the field. He outpunted UT Martin's punter by an average of over 15 yards per punt.
And it's a good thing because he was how many times?
Now he's got in practice. Let's be honest. But
how many times did he punt from the end zone where his back was against the white stripe? Where he was 10 feet from the locker room half the time. So yeah, he did do really good, and he's done good. As far as helping out the defense.
Giving them some semblance of a break. So let's go ahead and just continue to, I guess, transition into the VMI game here.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to challenge the UTC offense to throw for at least 2 touchdowns. Right, we've only had 1 passing touchdown through 3 games, and that was to Bingo Morton last week.
Mm-hmm.
Right, 1. Whereas Samford, Mr. Devlin Hodges has had 9.
Right.
So I would like to see us get in the end zone, but I'd like for Tiano to have some confidence. I'd like there to be some sort of competition as Tiano continues to progress, as Alejandro Benefield warms up, and then eventually we would all presume that he eventually becomes the starter.
Yeah, I will say this. No, there is no quarterback controversy.
Okay.
Now, and again, I do think Nick Tiano is the quarterback of the future. I look forward to seeing what he can do next year. I think, in just my opinion,
Well said.
there is no quarterback controversy now. When Benefield is able to play, Benefield is the starting quarterback. And that's not, I don't want to knock Nick Tiano and try to make it out that he is the reason that the offense has been so bad. But I do think at this point you've got to go with the new and see what it does to get the incumbent quarterback back.
That's going to give the team a spark anyway, and it should be Western Carolina, of course.
I wonder what that'll do for the receivers, not just the running back. I mean, not just the offensive line, because you think about.
Well, they're going to have to. Defenses are going to have to adjust from the beginning because of his scrambling ability. And again, like you said, Tiano's a power runner. He's just similar to Huseman was, but Benefield can just make you miss, and he can turn a potential sack into a 15, 20-yard gain. He has that ability. So defenses are going to have to adjust. That will probably help out the offensive line some.
Yes, and the run game.
Yes. Yeah. You're going to have somebody watching him all the time.
As far as the proverbial keeping the defense honest, right? The safeties have to now account for the quarterback run, right? Whereas before they're just licking their chops they're 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage, right? Ready to unload. And just any other just thoughts on the VMI game as far as what you would like to see. I will say VMI start time is 1:30, right, on Saturday. 1:30 this Saturday, UTC at VMI. And of the three Southern Conference games that have transpired through 3 weeks, all 3 of them have come down to the last possession. That shows really how tough I believe the Southern Conference is going to be this year.
This kicks off. We're all SoCon from this point on.
Yes, all SoCon, yes.
And let's again be positive and realistic. The SoCon is within reach. It's we haven't been eliminated from anything.
We just got to figure out how to score points.
We do need to get better, and I want to throw this in here. How bad Dale Warren comes back for the Mercer game? How bad do you already feel for those Mercer players who are going to have to?
By the way, it's at Mercer. Kevin, are you planning on attending the at Mercer game?
Yeah, I will not be there this weekend, but that'll be the last game.
Okay.
I would put pads on if I were you because he may not stop with the Mercer players.
I will say I hate to go back, but I did want to look this up. You said something about Colin Brewer. he would currently rank 56th in the FBS in punt average. He has a 42.1 punt average if you take out all the people who have less than 10 total punts in the first 3 games. So, I mean, there's a lot of guys that have only punted one time, and they, obviously their average is 50 yards or whatever.
And he's just a sophomore, and let's give credit to where credit due. He has really, really been a huge help to the team through their struggles.
And see, Colin Brewer last year, for the Mocs fans that watched games and went to games last year, he was asked to do more of the rugby style kicking, right? And this is the first year where he's actually punting it in a more of a normal end over end, pin 'em deep fashion, right?
I've seen him cut loose in practice. Again, there's no pressure, and he's just standing there by himself. He can, I mean, there's 70 yards is not out of the question, punt wise.
We did talk about special teams and how we needed to have better punt returns and better kickoff returns and everything, but they only punted. UT Martin only punted one time, so we really can't take a lot from that. I mean, we have to force punts to be able to have good returns.
Well, the UT Martin did those 2 or 3 little pooch kicks where they were like fourth and 4.
Yeah,
and the quarterback just kicked
that's
it.
Right.
Yeah,
yes.
But I don't know if that went. But that obviously didn't count towards
the one return was for 0 yards, so I think it was a fair catch. But I don't know. I know I always and try to put out there like a 3 keys to victory or something. It's gonna be really tough this week. It's not gonna be really tough to put out 3 keys to victory because I mean we can come up with things, but I just think overall. Taking out details, and I want to see this, and I just want to see a complete game.
An identity on
I want to see a nice flow to the offense. I want to see being able to go play action because the running game is working. I want to see being able to run a draw because the passing game is working. I want to see us be able to do things that only work if the complete package is together. Right. And just see confidence and moving the ball down the field. And I'll tell you this, because it's the only time I've really seen it as a whole was in the very first drive against LSU. It wasn't just a drive we were all impressed. But we just looked confident.
I was getting ready.
Yes, there was an identity. There was a purpose.
There wasn't we're just here surviving. We're just here, to play out the string. There was a purpose behind the drive, and there was nice flow. We ran the football well, and then off the runs we were able to pass the football, and it looked good. So I mean, yes, there are some keys, and yes, there are some things that we could focus on for Saturday. But it just needs to be a complete game. And I think if we play a complete game offensively and we can move the football offensively, the defense will also play well. There won't be the pressure on the defense because, let's be honest, right now there's pressure on the defense to stop the other team every single drive.
Right.
Because we can't give up points. You cannot get beat deep, so you play off a little bit. Well, then you give up the short route. It's just we have to take a little pressure. Everybody has to take pressure off everybody else. And I'd like for us to come out of this game feeling like we could play free without having to have so much pressure. I really felt like, I don't know what it was, but I don't know if it was the fact that it was the first home game. I don't know if it was, and I'll say this, there were a lot of people there. There were a lot of people there. And I was going to say earlier when we talked about some of the things that I was very positive on, one of the negatives, and this is the biggest negative I have, is that I'm really afraid that a lot of those people are not coming back. And I hope not. I hope that's not the case because I feel like they would be missing out if they didn't. But I do feel like because this was Art's first game at home and they've done a lot of work to try to, promote this team in the community, that there were so many people there, and I'm just afraid that it wasn't just a loss. That because of the way we lost, there was no excitement. There was that nothing happened on the field to leave people wanting to come back. And I'm afraid that that's going to hurt.
Yeah, there were, unfortunately, several people leaving at halftime.
A lot, yeah. And, I mean, by the time the fourth quarter came, I mean, I wasn't worried about traffic getting out. Let's just say that. So, I mean, it was I'm worried that I'm almost glad this next game's on the road. I'm glad it's on the road. We need to win, and we need to win
We
convincingly.
do, and let's, looking ahead 2 weeks, another reason for getting everything together for, against VMI is because when Western Carolina comes back to Findlay in 2 weeks, they can score.
Right.
And they
can
will,
score
yeah.
on, but they have the best running back in the conference, and
Arguably in the
maybe
FCS.
second best
Yeah.
quarterback in the conference. I mean,
Are you referencing Tyree Adams,
Yes.
Western Carolina's quarterback? Yeah, Western Carolina running back Detrez Newsome leads FCS in all-purpose yards per game at 217.
Yeah.
Leads the FCS, not leads the Southern Conference, leads the FCS nationally. And he had,
we need to
if
score.
and Mocs fans, if y'all remember, Detrez Newsome had 277 yards rushing on us last year.
I think
Rushing.
He had 2 runs of over 70.
Right. So yes, and as I referenced earlier with Western Carolina, they're averaging over scoring as far as more than 40 yards or not 40 yards, 40 points per game.
But that's 2 weeks ahead. But again, we do need to put together a complete game this coming Saturday at VMI. We need to see points going on the board. We need to see turnovers. We need to see some 10-plus yard, big plays in general. Just
Explosive
20+
plays,
yard
absolutely.
plays, which we've only had just a handful of. Matter of fact, I can think of 3. That's it. Bingo Morton, and then 2 by Joseph Parker. Other than that, there hasn't been any explosive plays. We need to have those.
Every sports fan has been a fan of a team that at some point has gotten things going. Like, I remember and I go back because I grew up a Georgia fan, and I go back to, and obviously it's a different, atmosphere at Sanford Stadium than you would have at Findlay, just based on the sheer numbers of people that you can get in there. But I go back to a game a long time ago. I was 16, 17, 18 years old. I was in high school, and we were playing Mississippi State. And I was sitting up in the upper level, and we scored a touchdown. And then on the next possession for Mississippi State, we intercepted the ball. I got a pick 6. And then on the very next possession, we held them 3 and out, and they punted to us, and we ran the punt back for a touchdown. And the noise in the stadium was just deafening. Like, you just couldn't hear. And so every fan out there has been a fan of a team that at some point has done that, whether it be to a team that they should be doing that to, or in a big game or something like that. That's what we need. We need score a touchdown, create a turnover, something with some momentum to get behind us, and not just carry us through the next, because we have to beat VMI, but to carry us onto the bus and to carry us into Findlay again the next week.
Through the whole week's practice.
Right.
Feed on that, build on it.
Where no longer are you trudging through practice where you feel like you're running through mud, where at that point everything becomes just a little bit faster and just a little bit easier. And you get other people behind you, because momentum is highly underrated in a lot of circumstances.
It's never more important than it is in football.
Right. Momentum is we've seen it over the course of, any you're right about football. I mean, I'm a Falcons fan. We all know what momentum did last February.
Can you refresh our memory?
No, we don't need to refresh that at all.
Yeah, I was actually sleeping real quick. So what happened in February?
I don't know. You don't need. I've haven't been able to sleep since then. So, I mean, momentum in football is just it's a crazy thing, and I just think we undervalue getting momentum, and not just getting momentum inside of a game, but getting momentum from game to game. And we've got to start building some positive momentum, because as much as we undervalue momentum, I'm not just talking about positive momentum. I'm talking about negative momentum too. And I think right now we have we're going in the wrong direction.
Right. Like I said, I can't think of another team we would rather be playing this week in the Southern Conference than VMI. And again, nothing against VMI, but we need this game to turn that momentum around, because you're right, it is going the wrong direction. The team is going to feel that vibe.
Yes, and like I said, we have the week after VMI we have Western, and the following week we're at Mercer. The last
Furman.
Furman and then Mercer. But the last time we were at Mercer was an unfortunate loss, and I believe Mercer is the most balanced team in our conference.
I think they're underrated.
Speaking of that, were there some big? There were other teams that played in the Southern Conference this week.
Correct. Yeah. So
Take it away.
Can I jump into my Eric's power rankings, SoCon power rankings?
Please do, because I'm actually anxious to hear.
Okay. So last week was my first edition. This week is my second edition. Again, this is just Eric's personal
Will next
opinion.
week be your third edition?
It will be my third edition.
No. They're going to say he's going to skip that one. Next week's the fourth one.
I'm going to skip that one.
There's that momentum.
So I've got Wofford as my number one team in the Southern Conference. This is not going off of ranking or record. Sorry. This is just, again, power rankings. I've got Wofford at number one. They've had wins over Furman and Mercer. And essentially, Wofford is under the until someone beats them category, right?
True.
They were projected to win the conference in both coaches and media polls. So right now, they are the number one team. I've got Mercer at number two. I believe Mercer is the most balanced team. They lost to Wofford at home by 1. They led 90% of that game, but unfortunately, freshman quarterback Kalen Riley threw 2 bad interceptions in the fourth quarter, and I believe he's going to rectify that as that's just freshman woes, right?
Sure.
You're playing Wofford, who has the number one defense in the Southern Conference, and you lose by 1 at home. So I've got Mercer at number 2.
Don't skip the fact that they almost. I mean, they only lost by 14 to Auburn.
Right.
At
They
Auburn.
forced five turnovers.
5 turnovers. Now, some of that I'm sure was a lot of that was on Auburn, but I mean, it's still there.
It's still
you
5
cannot
turnovers,
ignore 24-10 at Auburn.
Right.
So I've got Mercer number 2. Number 3, I've got Citadel. Citadel was the Southern Conference 2016 champions of our conference. They went 8-0, and currently they have a 3-0 overall record. However, I am concerned that they had to overcome a 10-point deficit at ETSU last week. Right. You have an ETSU team who is essentially playing with a bunch of sophomore and juniors, and you have a Citadel team who finished 8-0 last year.
Right.
And ETSU had a chance to win that game.
Right.
Late in the fourth. So I've got Citadel at 3 again. 8-0 last year, the 3-0 so far. Again, they opened up with Newberry and Presbyterian. Then they go on the road at ETSU. And what are they? But they're 3-0. Okay.
Right.
Samford, they can score points. As I referenced earlier, Devlin Hodges has nine passing touchdowns through 3 games, and Kelvin McKnight, wide receiver, has 5 receiving touchdowns.
But on the flip side,
they're last in defense. Right, and they have no running game.
Right.
Absolutely no running game. So they can score points. Again, Devlin Hodges was the 2016 Southern Conference Offensive Player of the Year. And if it weren't for Devlin Hodges, Samford would be ranked, I believe, lower as far as my power rankings. But they went on the road last week and lost to Georgia, 42-14. However, the week prior they were in a track meet with Division II Western Alabama. Right. So again, this is early in the season. We haven't gotten to the meat of the schedule yet to really kind of differentiate who's who, as far as.
I think that's really starting up.
We're starting up, yeah. So. I just don't trust the defense of Samford, and I don't trust their running game. Even though they are a pass-first team, I just don't trust them. 5th, I've got Western Carolina, as we referenced earlier with Detrez Newsome and Tyree Adams. They're going to score points. I trust Samford over Western because they have Devlin Hodges, again, who was the 2016 Southern Conference Offensive Player of the Year. He's tossed 9 touchdowns through 3 games. And Tyree Adams is a sophomore. So right now, I trust Devlin Hodges more than I trust the quarterback for Western Carolina. So I give the nod to Samford in this category, right? Now, Samford and Western Carolina, they played this weekend. And as I told y'all, the second team to 50 points loses.
Right.
The second team to 50 points loses that game. So that's Samford at Western this Saturday. If you want an offensive score. Actually, here, real quick, let's make this fun. We've got Mr. Loftus, we've got Kev and Jeff here. Let's all make a prediction for Samford, Western Carolina, and let's see who's right come next Tuesday's show. So I'm going to write this down real quick. Jeff, what's your Samford, Western Carolina score?
51-42.
Okay, and who wins that one?
Samford.
Okay, Kevin, what's your score?
I would say Sanford's going to win.
Where's it at?
It's at Western in Coley.
That's interesting. Let's go 56-50. Trying to think of good football. 56-52.
56-52. Or do we have any overtimes in this game, or is it just straight regular?
No, that's regular, man.
No, that's the first quarter.
If it goes overtime, we got to reset the scoreboard.
Okay. I'll go with I will one up both of you gentlemen. I'll go 61-58 triple overtime. And I'll go Western is the victor.
Sounds like you're doing the Cavaliers over the.
Yeah, I'll go Eric. And then Mr. Loftus, what is your Samford Western Carolina prediction for Saturday?
I find that games like that people expect a boatload of points ends up either you get the weather that just happens to blow in and it turns into a turnover fest, or you've got two teams that put the ball in the air that much and it becomes a turnover fest. So I'm going to go low.
Okay.
I'm going to say it's going to be 28-24 Western.
Ooh. And for y'all listening, hit us up on social media at Mocs Insiders and give us your score. And if y'all have any scores,
Score for that one, score for VMI, any of the SoCon games.
Yeah, any of the Southern Conference games. It's just fun with Samford and Western. Because, as I said, they had the two of the most high-profile offenses in the league, and they face each other this week. Okay.
And the winner gets a free subscription to this podcast.
Yes. Yes. And we also get a Jeff Ellis swimsuit calendar. Is that true? Is that true, Jeff? Can we get a?
Yes. And what makes it even nicer is it's the calendar from 1983 when I actually was.
And
calendar worthy.
And this is autographed, right? This is autographed?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I've got Samford at 4. I've got Western at 5. I've got Furman at 6. Furman led NC State 3-0, if that means anything on Saturday. But I trust Furman's offense, even though they are 0-3, exactly like UTC at 0-3. They have a new head coach in Clay Hendricks. I trust Furman's offense more than I trust UTC's offense. Now, Furman lost to Elon on the last possession 2 weeks ago, but Elon beat Charleston Southern this past weekend. So here I was bashing how bad of a loss that was for Furman. Elon beats a Charleston Southern team who is ranked.
Eric Cooksey and Jeff Ellis will be saying the exact same thing about this loss to UT Martin in about 4 weeks.
Okay, book it down. So, again, I just trust Furman's offense more than I trust UTC. They're able to score points. They have an identity, and I just think they're also competing. They're coming down to the last possession. UTC has not had that yet.
No.
Okay, so I've got ETSU coming in at 7.
Wow, there is no confidence level for
I've got ETSU coming up at 7. Now, I've got ETSU because they were up by 10 on Citadel, as I said, this past week. And this is a Citadel team, as I had alluded to, that won 8 games last year, finished 8-0. And also, Citadel's quarterback won Offensive Player of the Week this week for Southern Conference. So ETSU is on the cusp, CUSP, of becoming I wouldn't say stud, but competitive Southern Conference team.
They're on the cusp, because I assume you're going next to our Mocs. Is UTC on the cusp? Because it sounds to me like it might be.
So I've got UTC coming in at 8th in the power rankings. And again, if y'all disagree with me, feel free to hit me up hit us up
not
at
hit
Mocs
him,
Insiders.
hit him up.
Not hit me up, but contact us on at Mocs Insiders. But I've got UTC at 8th, and essentially what I wrote down was I don't know who they are as a team, especially on offense. We don't have an identity. Our games have not been essentially competitive late. There hasn't been a playmaker on offense that has stepped up other than Bingo Morton. I just don't trust UTC, and the teams above UTC 1 through 7 have shown me more through the first 3 games. Now, you could also argue that none of the teams have had a schedule, have had to play the opponents that UTC has played. Yes, but again, this is my second annual so-called power rankings. So I can put UTC at 8th, and let's hope they rise, right? Lastly, I've got VMI, as I had alluded to earlier. They're not even averaging 7 points per game on as far as scoring. They've been held scoreless through 2 games, and the second week of the season they lost to a Division II school.
But one of our favorite campuses,
right? And one of our favorite campuses.
They're much higher up in the rankings.
So just to recap, I've got Wofford at 1, Mercer at 2, the Citadel at 3, Samford at 4, Western Carolina at 5, Furman at 6th. ETSU at 7, and our Chattanooga Mocs at 8th, and VMI pulling up the rear at 9th.
I like it. All right. Well, folks. Yeah. Well, let's just hold on this week. I'll see the game. Hopefully, you can go to Lexington, Virginia to see the VMI game. If not, it will be televised on one of the networks that don't have 3 letters.
ESPN3.
ESPN3, correct.
Yeah, go to GoMocs.com. You can stream it there.
You can stream it there. You can go to ESPN3, stream it there. We're gonna take this one. We're gonna win, and next week will be a totally different show. We could have balloons back there behind us, or let's face it, it could be a funeral.
And Mocs fans, just join the Vol fans. And let's step up off the ledge, okay? Step down. It's okay.
Tommy, did you hear that they had to take the Vols football website down?
No.
Yeah, they couldn't figure out how to string 3 W's together.
Jokes at Whoop FM, right?
And once the lights go out, you're going to hear some things here shortly.
Yeah, the video doesn't stop.
Hey, I see that your computer is about a foot from you. Would you like me to hand it to you, or want me to throw it to you 3 times?
And also, don't forget to tune into Good Sports this Thursday.
That's
Mr. Tommy Loftus there, who will be discussing some high school football, which is
big high school football games discussed this past weekend.
We'll have the Bradley game to recap. A lot of interesting stuff happened in that Bradley game. I wish I would have been here to see it. I was unfortunately down in Gainesville. Which will be our topic for the second hour. We will be talking hashing and rehashing and venting. Patrick, I'm sure will have as much to vent about as I will.
Yeah.
So if you might be one of the most negative shows that we've had. So join us then, and then of course we'll be back with you next week here on Mocs Insiders at 7:00 on Tuesday night, just like always. The 4 of us.
If I can say one,
no, you can't.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Jeff, safe travels to Lexington, Virginia.
Thank you.
Make sure to take some pictures and enjoy the game.
Yeah.
Kevin and I will be watching. And can I get a Go Mocs to everyone? Can I get a Go Mocs?
Go Mocs.
Go Mocs.
Yeah, let's go.
And Jeff, when you get to Knoxville, that sign that says Lexington I-75, that's the wrong one. Don't take that one. Okay?
Oh, I know people who have done that.
Right.
I definitely have a cousin that's done that.
Well, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll be back with you next week. Have a good week.
Come roust out your steers from the long chaparral, for the outfit is off to the railroad corral. Oh, we're up in the morning, air breaking of day. The chuck wagon's busy, the flapjacks in play. The herd is astir over hillside and vale, with the night riders rounding them onto the trail. Come roust out your steers from the long chaparral, for the outfit is off to the railroad corral.